Thank you, Kelly. Right, we are now live, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to tonight's meeting of the Cabinet. Just going through the agenda, the meeting protocol. Everyone present is aware of the protocol, so I don't propose reading it out verbatim, but the long and the short of it is if there is a fire and we are not expecting a drill, then please evacuate through the doors that are nearest to you and congregate by the Virgin Money Bank as quickly as possible. Also, just a reminder to make sure that your mobile phones are set to silent or switched off. Thank you. Item 2 is apologies, and all of the Cabinet are present, so there is nothing there. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest beyond what is already printed in the agenda? Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Chair. My employment has changed. I will be updating it accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Don't see anyone else indicating. So that moves us on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes. The minutes are in the agenda. Is everyone happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record of the last meeting? I see no dissent. Before we go on to the substantive items, I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate Brent Davis on his appointment as Chief Executive. It's your first meeting in Cabinet as the Chief Executive and flying solo, as it were. So congratulations on your appointment, and I look forward to continuing working with you as we go on to improve the borough for the residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth. So that moves us on to agenda item 5, which is public consultation. I haven't been made aware of any public consultation. There are councillors present who can speak under the amendment to the Constitution anyway. So that moves us on to agenda item number 6, which is the use of COVID-19 grant funding. Councillor Croft, this is your report. Well, it's our report, but you're leading. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'll start and you can wind up. Let me move the report, which stands in your and my name, on the agenda. This is the next phase of our economic recovery programme for the borough, following on from the emergency budget in June. We're able to introduce this because of the £703,000 that we've had in further additional restrictions grant money from the government, because of the excellent work that our officer team did over the summer in getting our previous allocations spent, which we targeted at those businesses who were at the time still affected by restrictions and lockdowns, so things like travel agents, wedding firms, etc., etc. So when I introduced the budget at some length in the summer, I described it as having 3 themes, which is recovery, revival and regeneration for our borough, and we are continuing those in these policies. So with recovery, we do recognise that the economic situation is still very tough for a lot of businesses out there, which is why we've introduced the SME Hardship Fund for those businesses who are still struggling, who still can't quite get the sales back up under the current conditions, and which is why I'm delighted that we're able to confirm officially that we are extending our market rent offer until the end of the financial year, which is 100% rent discount for regular traders and 50% discount for casual traders. That's something I know they've been pressing us on, and we're able to confirm it officially, publicly tonight. So with Revival, I'm very pleased by this scheme, the Business Recovery and Growth Grant Scheme, as we're moving into the next phase, which is not just support during difficult economic times, but it's helping businesses to grow and expand as we emerge from the recession and the pandemic crisis. So we're going to make grants available to businesses for capital expansion, for refurbishments, for new equipment, for consultation to allow them to expand, which means that those businesses that might not be able to cough up the costs, the initial costs to make that kind of investment, will have some support from us so we know we can guarantee them continuing to trade in the borough in the future. And I know there's something that's dear to your heart, Leader. We've also introduced a town arts, culture and leisure recovery scheme, which has two benefits. First of all, it's going to support, again, those businesses which are still quite hard hit, because entertainments really were the last businesses to open up from the restrictions, and the people are still a bit wary. But also, of course, it has the wonderful multiplier effect of, if there are entertainments in the town centre, more people will come in and see them and spend money. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve that virtuous circle of growth. More visitors, more spending, more businesses means more visitors. And the final scheme we're introducing is, of course, the shopfront scheme, which we promised in the election, and we are keeping that promise. This is partly a bugbear of mine, but it's also partly something that we've had a lot of feedback on from businesses around the town, which is the place over the years has become a bit. It looks a bit decayed. So architects haven't been very kind to the Nuneaton and Bedworth town centres. So we're going to make some grants available to businesses to improve their shop fronts, to make the place more attractive, and show our town centres off for the charming Midlands market towns that they should be, as opposed to places that look like left over from the 1970s. So these are the schemes, Leader, Cabinet. I'm delighted we're able to finally proceed with them now that we've had the confirmation of the funding, and I shall move the report in our name.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. So I'm more than happy to second this from the chair. Is there any councillor who wishes to speak? I've got Councillor Watkins, then Councillor Clark, then Councillor Condacourt. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In principle, got nothing wrong with it at all. What I'm sort of asking here is perhaps friendly amendment, friendly suggestions to go along with this, but obviously Councillor Croft, you'll be able to tell me whether you can or can't do it. What I was thinking along the line coming up to the festive season is some sort of grants for shops and small businesses to spend just on Christmas decorations, to brighten up their town centres, make it more festive and attractive for people to visit. I'm not even going to give you a figure. I'm sure you'll come up with a figure, but I was thinking something along £500, something to spend on their shops, decorations and things like that. The other one would be to, when I was mayor, there was a cup. There is a cup, as far as I know. It's still there. It was going to the market stalls. Perhaps Jeff might know something about this. It was going to the best dressed market stall coming up again Christmas. So again, offering small grants to the market stalls to do something festive coming up to the Christmas period, and perhaps on Christmas light switch-ons, the mayor with other councillors go around, pick out the best dressed market, most attractive market, and award the cup for the year. One of the things that I've wanted to do for a long time is to run themed markets alongside our own markets. So some sort of themed market going up Abbey Street, but only to complement our market, which would be where they are always. And to put some sort of thinking about this, we are going ahead with the building of the hotel. And the Birmingham Christmas market, which started in 2001, Frankfurt Market, started out with 24 stalls. It attracts over 3 million visitors now, millions of pounds to the Birmingham town centre. I was wondering if we could look at some sort of themed market. I'm not saying it's got to be a Frankfurt market, just some sort of themed market, perhaps linking in with our German town or French town or whatever. I was wondering if you could look at something like that. Again, not telling you how much, because you've got the know-how of what we can spend this on and if we could indeed spend it on anything like this. The last thing, Chair and Cabinet, is if we could set aside some money for groups that want to put, groups of people that want to put entertainment on in our main parks. I've been approached by a group that would like to do something in Riversley Park, but obviously they want to go large, so they're going to want to try and get a large band in and complemented by other bands, other stores, but they will need some funding. So I was wondering if you could consider that at least, and let me know your thoughts, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to see that Councillor Watkins is getting with the programme in trying to encourage growth in our town centres. I think it's really appropriate that we do that. I do welcome the government's investment that's coming forward for these projects and enabling us to do the suggestions that's set out in 2.1 to 2.7, I think, see here. I think they're absolutely ideal and will benefit the towns, particularly 2.1, the business recovery. Obviously, you mentioned that, Councillor, in relation to the need to carry on that support, but also in particularly market traders. I was actually in the market in the town today and talking with some of the traders, and they are delighted to hear that this money is coming forward again and supporting them through what will be hopefully a good Christmas period, but also what they call the kipper, the lean time after Christmas. So I welcome the fact that you're also giving the free parking over the Christmas period, which I think will be beneficial and hopefully bring people into the town. I think there's every opportunity to encourage the positiveness that's now seems to be appearing in our town centres, both Nuneaton, Bedworth and even Bulkington. There's a village centre, they're all benefiting, so I do welcome this report, and I'd ask that Cabinet support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Condicle.
Thank you very much. Like everyone else, there's money to give away or to use wisely is always welcome. And there's a lot to commend in this report, particularly for the town centres. But there's other areas that also need attention. I really do like funding for the arts, leisure and culture recovery. We've got the City of Culture still going on until May next year, and we haven't really benefited from that in Nuneaton, unfortunately, or Bedworth, with various things going on. So I'm surprised that only 1% of the funding is going to arts, culture, leisure, recovery, because leisure in itself is quite a large chunk. And I do hope if some of the other budgets have actually underspent due to less than the expected take-up, we can actually via some across to some of these leisure and cultural activities, because I do think they're a win-win-win. And also, you haven't attached Appendix A, as it says in 4.1, but I do hope some of the larger leisure and culture type things can actually apply for some of the business recovery and growth stuff, because some of those businesses really do struggle. No arts, no leisure, very little culture going on during the lockdowns, and some of those businesses want to grow. So I do hope that we're not exclusively taking people into this 7,500 pot, and actually some of the larger people in entertainment, leisure can apply for the main business recovery stuff. It's very welcome getting people into the town centres. We always forget about the people who don't drive. There is an awful lot of people who use public transport, and that has had lots of troubles during the COVID outbreak. We've lost lots of bus services, and unfortunately lost lots of bus shelters now. And so I do hope we actually encourage people to come in to the bus station and to the dropping off areas in Bedworth and get life back. Not just for thinking about the motorists, but actually thinking about people with all sorts of modes. And obviously don't forget cyclists. But I say generally it's not a programme we're against. It is very, very much recovering. but we just need to try and make sure we don't forget some of the people. I mean, my background is electronics, so I've been involved in small businesses and quite often work for firms with 2 or 3 people. And I hope we actually get a bigger culture of those small firms in Nuneaton and Bedworth as well. Most manufacturers have been not too bad during COVID, but obviously some of them have been producing things that then don't have an end market. I know one of the firms I've worked for produces radio microphones, and obviously that went into the entertainment industry that suffered. So it's good to think about all the different diversities of industries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Anything that officers want to come back on? Just because the Director for Regeneration Housing didn't have a microphone, I'll just reiterate that, I know it is difficult with COVID, just to reiterate that she has undertaken to answer some of the more technical details later with Councillor Croft. Any other Cabinet member wish to come in? Councillor Croft?
So I'll just come back on a couple of points there. Councillor Watkins has got a lot of ideas, and they're very constructive ideas, but as he knows, I'm quite reluctant to make policy on the fly, so we will go and look at them. So I think some of them may not be practical as described, because the ARG works on the basis of it's a grant by application. It's not just a free pot of money we can just spend here and there, but certainly we'll take them away and look at them. In response to Councillor Connicle's points, the schemes are very deliberately been designed so that money can be vied between the schemes. If there's underspend in one or there's further need in another, that's why we've done it this way. In terms of point 4 and point 6 was designed effectively to try and encourage town centre entertainments. So it wasn't putting everybody in the same basket. It wasn't, if you fall into this box, that is the only scheme you can apply to. The Business Recovery and Growth Scheme was designed for SMEs in general. It was just that point 6 is designed more to try and encourage entertainments within the town centre. Effectively, because we don't currently have a bid, it's sort of doing the work that a bid would be doing anyway. So I hope that answers his question.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Croft. I'm delighted to second this report, and it's something that Councillor Croft and I have worked with officers on in some detail, because we were very conscious that the £703,000 landed in the council's bank account a few weeks ago, and we are determined to get this money out as quickly as possible to those that actually need it the most. And so my thanks primarily go to officers for turning this around so quickly, because we were left in a bit of a gap between the last round of ARG funding and this, which I know has caused some consternation with market traders, for example, because I have had a number of emails from them asking when the next round of payments will come, and the answer has always been, I'd love to pay you, but I have to wait for the government to give us the next round of ARG funding, because it was always contingent upon that. But now we have it. I'm pleased to confirm that the head of markets is, as we are, well, probably not as we are speaking, but is working proactively to make sure that we sign up the market traders as quickly as possible so they can get the next round of instalments, which I think will continue to make a difference to the traders moving forwards. In response to Councillor Watkins, it's actually refreshing to hear a Labour leader come up with some imaginative ideas, unlike his predecessors. I will actually commend him for having some imaginative ideas, and as Councillor Croft said, we don't have the monopoly on good ideas, and we will listen to them. If they are viable and we can fund them, we will try and do so. But what I would say is £703,000 sounds like a lot of money. When you cut up the cake to try and achieve all the other aims that we are doing in this report, you soon dwindle down to smaller amounts of money to try and divide up in different ways. And so we have to try and focus our efforts on the areas it will have the most effect on, because if we dilute it too much, no one will benefit. So that is the quandary that we are in. But I think we have, for now, struck the right balance. But we are also working on theme markets. That is a conversation that I'm having with the head of town centres, and we are having some encouraging conversations. For example, I think it's the 28th of November, we have a craft market coming into Bedworth on a Sunday, and the new cafe has confirmed, because I was there on the new market day on Friday, where it's now outside. I went and did a tour 2 weeks ago, and they will also be trading as well. They're more than up for the challenge of looking after all the stalls. I think there's approximately 40 odd stalls going in on the 28th of November. So theme markets is certainly something that we're looking at. And Councillor Clark is right, whilst it isn't strictly speaking an element of this report, car parking charges and the market rates is having a big difference. And so we are emphasising again our credentials as a new Conservative administration, that we are listening to and looking after businesses and market traders in Nuneaton and Bedworth. So I am delighted to second this report and see it come forward, and the quicker we can get the money out the better. And as Councillor Croft said, as we did before with the last round of ARG funding, when it became apparent that certain areas had underspends and there were needs to transfer elsewhere, we did so to get the money out the door, and we will do so again if necessary. So is there any other Cabinet member? No. I'll let you have one brief intervention. It's not strictly speaking within the new constitution, but I'll allow it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What I just wanted to say, and I should have said before, is I didn't bring these up tonight to be awkward. It's just that I know the money's there now, and I'd rather bring them up now so that you can carve. It gives you a chance to carve the money up a bit fairer if you take on any of the suggestions. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watkins. Well, I'm sure officers will be monitoring quite closely the amount of money which is going out the door, and if there is any scope for either wiring the money into other pots which is showing additional pressures, or indeed if there are new schemes which are viable within the allocated pot, because we're expecting to have to spend it, if I remember rightly, Dawn, by the end of March 22, which will soon be upon us. I know it only seems like yesterday we had the new year, so but we will do everything that we possibly can with this money to get the most bang for our buck. So there are no other speakers, so I'll bring it to a conclusion and take it to the vote. Can I have a show of hands all in favour of the recommendations, please? That is unanimous, and that has been passed. Thank you very much. That brings us on to agenda item number 7, and this is my report on Cabinet support members. So there is the facility under the Local Government Act, I believe it is, which Mr Richardson pointed out, for us to have Cabinet support members, and indeed according to my research many other authorities actually have this practice, and I think it's a good initiative that we can bring forward in Nuneaton and Bedworth, because there will be a need for members to develop in their roles as councillors, and those who aspire to move on and those who want to leave positions, to make sure that there is a succession ready for members to potentially become full-blown Cabinet members in the future. And also, it has to be recognised that we are, as a council, going through significant programmes of regeneration or project work. Just thinking particularly about Councillor Guttridge's portfolio, one of the things that we have inherited as a new administration is not only the issues with Glendale, which we are tackling, but there are a number of policies which are out of date, no longer applicable, and are difficult to defend. And we need to bring these up to scratch for the benefit of residents. Indeed, in Councillor Smith's portfolio, there are, in relation to the Borough Plan Review, from memory 14 or 15 policies which are all out of date and will not be supported by the inspector. And that is another mammoth project which we have moving forwards. So I believe Cabinet members would benefit from the support of additional or Cabinet support members to help bring forward these items to fruition, and to enable Cabinet members to tackle some of the more complicated issues which cross our, I would say desk, but probably more accurate to say Outlook, Express and all those other ones nowadays. and also to have that relationship with officers as well, which I think is an important culture to embed, that cabinet members and hopefully cabinet support members build on those good relations, which we were applauded for actually in our recent LGA peer review, the first review we have ever done at this authority. So I would also like to emphasise there is no additional cost to these proposals whatsoever. There is no allowance attached to these roles. It is a development role for them and to help, and for those of us who actually believe in public service as well, because we are not in this for the money. We actually do this because we want to make a difference. So I am happy to propose it from the chair. Is there a seconder? Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Leader. I'll second that gladly, and I will reiterate what you said. There is no cost to the council or allowances for members. It is primarily a role to bring somebody on into the cabinet to make basically run side by side as your second in command, and just look at different avenues that we've got, because we have got quite a lot going on, and I in particular have got quite a lot of work going on with very few projects or strategies in place. We are basically starting from a clean sheet and working from that, and we have come a long way in the Parks Department since May. More than we are punching more above our weight at the Parks Department, and I value the service of the staff we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge, for seconding that and your endorsement. Is there any any non-cabinet member who wishes to speak? Councillor Condacourt.
Thank you very much, Chair. Whilst it's useful to think out of the box and try and not necessarily work how it worked in the past, I am a bit concerned if we're doing this instead of doing working parties. I think there's probably a role for both, and a lot of the non-controversial or non-party political issues, I think working parties are a great way for a small group of 3 or 4 or 5 councillors to add value. And there's a lot of knowledge on both sides of the chamber. So I do hope you'll not exclude the continued use of working parties for some subjects, because I think that is very valuable. Also, the Green Party quite often has job shares in its senior roles. And I think that's a very, very useful way, particularly with people gaining experience or when there's just such a sheer amount of work to do. That 2 people can take one role on half the salary, or 60-40 or whatever. So I do hope the council thinks in future maybe doing job shares for various roles, because it does add a lot of value, a lot of experience. You can have someone older and wiser and someone keener and younger. You can have someone, just different backgrounds. And I think we should be thinking outside the box and thinking about things like job share as well. And if you look at the declaration of members' interest, particularly for Twin Hatters, some of the cabinet are really, really busy, and I think considering different ways of working is very useful. So I do hope you come back on working parties, because particularly my knowledge about planning, I've been involved in planning for 15 years, to have no working parties looking at any of these SPDs, doing it entirely via cabinet member and their understudy, doesn't actually then include some of our knowledge and shared experience. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Any member? Councillor Golby and Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Chair. There's no mention of actually doing away with working parties, so it has absolutely no impact. This is somebody to help in a sort of administrative capacity for someone like me, who I do have now full-time employment as well. So I do need an extra pair of hands, and if somebody wants to volunteer within our group to help me out and do those things and share, lighten the load and stuff like that for me, then that's a great help. So I'm happy to support this. And just while I've got the mic, I need to clarify that you may hear me coughing, but I don't have COVID. So I'd rather not see posts about me on social media later about the coughing and everything else. You know, other illnesses are still available.
Councillor Guthridge.
Thank you, Leader. The working parties will still carry on. There will be no change with the working parties, Councillor Condacor. It is just another member to run side by side with a cabinet member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guthridge. I think actually this administration has good credentials in terms of working with working parties, both before the election and after. Indeed, we were the first ones to propose a borough plan committee, which was put on a formal footing with minutes and agendas and open to the public, and where policy documents can come forward and be debated and discussed and considered before coming on to Cabinet, and then, if necessary, wider consultation. Proposals, which I might add, were blocked on at least 3 occasions by the former controlling group until they started losing heavily at the elections and we went into no overall control. And indeed, in the new administration, we already have working parties looking at the Platinum Jubilee. We have working party looking at the Civic Honours, and that has included people from the opposition as well. And they are in the I think we have one of them already set up, and the other one due to be having its first meeting. And also, this administration values scrutiny, probably because we have actually all served on scrutiny, whereas most of the previous administration forgot what scrutiny was because they hadn't done it for so long. They were so used to being in power without actually the responsibility that necessarily goes with it. So we have enhanced the scrutiny process. We have given them more opportunities to scrutinise, creating 3 scrutiny panels, defining their remits, and cabinet members turn up and are questioned on scrutiny. Indeed, I turn up to ones if I'm available, even if I'm not particularly the portfolio holder being questioned. And if in my view, if scrutiny panels wish to look at working parties, and there is the officer capacity to do so, then I'm all for that, because if they bring forward some good ideas and we can do it, then I'm all for that, and more the merrier. And we were actually, in the LGA report as well, commended on the fact that our scrutiny chairs work together to actually look at the work of the council and ensure that they carry on and look at the work of the council in the round. Bearing in mind that 2 of them are new members, I think that's a remarkable endorsement of the work that the scrutiny chairs are doing. So I'm happy to bring this to a conclusion and bring it to a vote. So can I have a show of hands of all those in favour? Thank you very much. That was unanimous. And that brings us on to agenda item number 8, which is the Public Space Protection Order Begging Control. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Cabinet's asked to consider approval of a Public Space Protection Order, or PSPO, to address the issues caused by begging within the borough in accordance with the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014. Both the council and the police have experienced a large increase in the number of complaints in relation to begging and the associated antisocial behaviour. And there's currently no public space protection order in place to address the impacts, both on residents and businesses. We're bringing a lot of fresh ideas forward to bring our town centres to life, and begging and the antisocial behaviour that goes alongside it is not something that we should allow to persist. We did do a consultation exercise to understand the overall direct and indirect impact of the problem, with a view to identify measures to address the issue. The feedback from the consultation shows a very strong level of support for a PSPO to help control begging within the borough. The order details are set out in Appendix A of the report, and the recommendation is that Cabinet approve this public space protection order to address the issues of begging and antisocial behaviour in the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Dolby has seconded. Is there any Didn't even get a chance to say that, Councillor Condicle. Non-cabinet member, Councillor Condicle.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm supporting having this order. It is dreadful that we have some people who abuse the generosity of others in the town centre. And in fact, some of those people actually moved into Wellington for a short while when they were driven out of the town centre by the police, and that action was taken. But I am a bit concerned about the equality impact assessment. I know we have a lot of charities doing work for the veterans, for the genuine homeless, etc. But I would have liked the equality impact assessment at least to accept that there could have been an impact on ex-servicemen, disability and things like that, to make sure we actually write in. It's actually better to say there might be a problem and the solution is these charities than to have all these impact assessments always say there will be no adverse impact. I mean, clearly we need to have those other measures in place and be signposting people to the veteran contact point or the various P3s and doorways to make sure that the genuine people who are in trouble are helped. And I am concerned that these equality impact assessments are a bit textbook tick box exercises. I have also noticed what's going on in Coventry, and I'm really pleased the Coventry Building Society have a thing you can do a contactless payment on the windows of the Coventry Building Society to support homeless charities. And that seemed a really good thing, and particularly because we're so close, it might be worth asking if there could be a point in Nuneaton where people could contactly pay into a charity if they wanted to give a fiver to the local homeless charities, so that actually we recognised there's a problem with genuine homelessness, and we actually recognised there could be a potential equality issue, but we've actually done something about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Councillor Watkins and Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm obviously in support of this. It was something that was started whilst I was Cabinet Member for Housing and Communities, and whilst I was Mayor raising charities, raising money for Doorway, it came up quite often that people were unsure who to give the money to and who was begging and who was actually homeless. So obviously in full support of this, and if we could just tag on that when we do advertise the fact of this, that we do also put out that we have got Doorway P3 and whatever. We could also put out that, so especially coming up to Christmas, there could be some more people out there. But in full support of no begging in town centres, well, anywhere really, because it's still happening. It's still, and we need to make sure that by using this, then the police can do their job. So yeah, I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Wasn't intending to speak on this one at all, actually. However, I had the opportunity the other day as Deputy Mayor to attend the P3 Open Day, along with some of our officers from the council, and I was pleased to hear how much work is being done to help those people who are homeless in particular. Obviously this is slightly different in relation to the begging, but there are impacts on the beggars that may be homeless as well. So it was pleasing to hear that there's good working between the council and the various organisations, not just P3. There are other organisations out there that are working to help homeless people. In relation to the begging, it's noticeable by the number of responses that this is an issue in the town, and as identified in those responses, the majority of people have been impacted and affected by being approached by beggars and things, and I think we do need something like this to address that going forward. It must be cut out to an extent as much as possible. What I would say is, in relation to another issue, part of what was said previously, in regards to donating, there are a number of traders actually in the town who pay it forward already. You can buy coffees, you can buy food, sandwiches and they'll hand them out to the homeless or the beggars or who they have been identified as particularly needing help. So there are other ways of helping as well, and people should look at that when they want to donate or give money to help people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So I think that's the way forward, but I do welcome the report, and I think it will be beneficial going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any Cabinet member? Councillor Dolby.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on the point about the impact assessment, if there are any ex-service personnel that are homeless, they are signposted. So in the way that this control order is being put together, it doesn't impact on homeless people because it's not targeting homeless people. We know who our homeless are. We have people from our team here who go out pretty much on a daily basis and speak to people. I mean, I was in the office a couple of weeks, well, last week, and I spotted somebody who I didn't recognise in town who clearly looked like he didn't have anywhere to be. And I came in and I had a word, and they were straight out the door trying to find him. I mean, I can't commend our teams highly enough for the work that they do on that. We have a really, really strong team here in this council who help people every day, who present as homeless. This PSPO is not targeting people who are homeless. You have to stop conflating begging with homelessness because they are two very separate things. Every beggar that we have out there has not been homeless. Or, I mean, and that is pretty much, unless it's somebody transient who's passing through, any one of the regular faces that you see in this town centre have either rejected help, and some of them have had more help, probably singularly, offered to them than any other resident in this borough. And there's literally two people that spring to mind, and they're usually in the papers every few weeks. Or they have had housing. Now, we have people who are council tenants who sit in the town centre pretending to be homeless. That is a fact. This is not targeting homeless people. I cannot impress that enough, because I've seen it spouted about where it's politically expedient to paint it as the nasty Tories picking on the homeless and the down and outs. That is not true. This is not targeting people who are homeless. This is targeting people who are begging. Some of those people are criminals. This is targeting those people. We have a lot of people in this town who are extremely generous, and we are known for that. I mean, I've said it before in this chamber. We did have an instance of one chap who was getting a training from Leicester every day to beg because he was earning 200 quid a day, sat on his behind outside Greg's. And that's the other thing. If you want to give to a homeless person, give to an authorised charity, or like Councillor Clark has said, there are places in town that will pay it forward. I've done it myself, where I've been outside and I've bought people a sausage roll and a cup of tea from Greg's, and literally as soon as I've gone around the corner, they've chucked it in the bin. Again, that's not homeless people. They were begging. We have to get away from this idea that every beggar we see in the town centre is homeless, because it's not true. We have a good, strong team here in this council who look after people who are homeless, and I can't speak highly enough of them, because they do go over and above and out of their way to make sure that everybody is being dealt with, whether they get offered help, whether they take that help or not. We cannot force people to take the help, but they certainly get offered it whenever we can see that somebody is in need. And veterans especially, veterans are a particular point of interest in mine. I have spoken to people about the contact point, and there is a very, very good working relationship between this council and the contact point. So again, the impact assessment actually stands as far as I'm concerned. And I'll thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dolby. Any other Cabinet member? Anything officers wish to pick up on? I think Councillor Condacor has an interesting idea about if Coventry Building Society are doing this tap and pay thing, then perhaps our officers could make an approach, see whether that's something which is viable. I don't see the harm in asking our officers to send an email or a letter to Coventry Building Society, and if that is something which can be done, I think, as Councillor Golby has highlighted, if we do have other areas or points where people can make donations to valid charities where we know it will go through to those who are in most need, then I think that is a good idea. So I think we can ask officers to take that forward, if that's okay, Dawn. And also, just to reiterate something, at the LGA peer review that we just had, from memory, the reviewers also had meetings with P3 and with Doorway about the relationship with the council, and that was found to be exceptionally positive in the review and the working that we do, not just with the homelessness sector, but with external bodies in general. And I'm looking forward to receiving the full LGA report soon, we hope. Because we only had a presentation, but one of the things they did say is that for an authority of our size, we do actually have really good relations with our external bodies, and that includes people like P3 and Shelter, and other organisations as well, which help in this particular area, and I think that is very encouraging. And I know from having spoken to Councillor Golby, whose portfolio it is, and Dawn Dawson, that everyone who is out there who is begging has been approached by the council officers for assistance and to signpost and to guide, and that almost exclusively every single person left out there is someone who has rejected that help. So this isn't a case of we're penalising people. They have had the assistance which is necessary and they could have taken up, but they have rejected the professional help from this council, and that does not give them licence to then go out and beg. And I think we have to do something to control this and give the police the tools to actually improve and tidy up our town centres. So, any other member? I'm not seeing anyone. Can we have a show of hands of those in favour of the PSPO? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That then takes us on to agenda item, I haven't got a number on here, agenda item number 9 on page 46, which again is yourself, Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Cabinet has to consider approval of a Public Space Protection Order again, PSPO, under the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014. This is to prevent the highway vehicle sales in the borough. It'll prohibit the displaying of vehicles for sale on A or B category roads within the borough. For some time we've had many complaints about the sale of vehicles in prominent positions on main roads in the borough. This practice is detrimental to the street scene and visual appearance of the borough, as well as being unfair to those businesses who use legitimate business premises for this purpose. The proposed new PSPO would prohibit anyone displaying for sale any vehicle on roads or surrounding land forming part of the highway that's classed as an A or B road as part of trade or business. A statutory public consultation was undertaken and representations made during the consultation were considered, and the following amendments to that final order are proposed. We'll change the wording so the order only applies to those persons selling vehicles as part of a trade or business and not for private domestic sale. We'll amend the order to include A and B roads in the borough and C and D category roads within 15 metres of a junction with an A or B category road. We state in the order that the fine on prosecution is up to £1,000, as well as some slight description wording changes. So I can move the motion with the recommendation that the Cabinet approve the making of the final order at Appendix A of the report with these amendments presented in the report, and delegated authority be given to the Director of Planning and Regulation to finalise precise wording of the order in conjunction with myself as the portfolio holder. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm happy to second that from the Chair. So, any non-Cabinet member, you already indicated before, Councillor Clark, I know this is a particular hobby horse of yours, so Councillor Clark and Councillor Conderpool.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's obviously one of the main reasons why I'm here tonight, actually. Residents in my ward have particularly been blighted with this issue over a number of years, and it's not just in my ward, it's throughout the borough, but I've had a number of, numerous calls week on week in relation to this problem that we've experienced or continue to experience, and also the unfairness of the operations as identified, motor traders using the highways as part of a free sales lot, basically. I think it's just purely unfair to the rest of the operators and the businesses within the borough who have to pay their rates and dues and demands and necessary overheads to keep their businesses going. I think this is something that's been a long time coming, and I welcome it. I'm pleased also to hear in relation to the C and D roads. I actually had a resident contact me after the previous meeting where it was identified that there are issues on the sides, on the end of roads, on not just the A and B roads but on the corners. And this resident, I'm sure, will be very, very pleased to hear that we are looking to incorporate that extra bit of road, because it is on the corners more often than not where these issues tend to occur. So I do welcome that, and I'm sure the resident that contacted me will be pleased to see that that's incorporated in this report. I hope that the Cabinet will support it. I do welcome the fact that they've now brought it forward and it's something that we are progressing with. I would ask that you also support it. One question I did have, in the paper that I have before me, it doesn't say when the order is to come into force. Perhaps you could address that for me, Chair. And also, the fixed penalty notice does seem quite low, but I will ask, and I know this is only for 3 years, but are they going to be inflation linked as well? So perhaps you could address those issues for me. And is there any additional penalty for repetitive offenders? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Just to briefly answer those points before I bring in Councillor Condercore. Councillor Smith did say that in response to the consultation, the fine is proposed to be £1,000, not 100. And as for when it comes into effect, we have to agree the final wording between Mr. Richardson and Councillor Smith. But I would believe the 3 years would start once the Great Seal of the Borough has been actually applied. It's not a term we actually get to use very often, the Great Seal of the Borough. But it will be when that's applied, isn't it, Phil? So the moment it's applied, you've got your 3 years. Councillor Condercore.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm all in favour of this. I was on the working party. I think it was a good bit of work looking at it. One just query is the wriggle room of private domestic sales. How do we stop the frequent offenders just saying, well, this is actually my own car, even though I trade, I also are selling a car that's actually my private car. So I was a bit just concerned if you give people wriggle room, they'll use it. So if officers or yourself can just sort of clarify how we stop the loophole becoming a get out of jail card free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condercore. Is that something you can pick up on, Phil? Oh, and Andy Snowden?
There will be challenges in proving that sometimes, I'm sure.
like any investigation, we'll have to try and gather as much information as we can to get sufficient evidence to demonstrate the trade or business element to it. So things like DVLA information. If for example, there's a trader, or somebody we assume is a trader, with several cars all in different positions around the borough, there'd be perhaps an inference that actually they can't all be domestic sales. We could interview them. We can bring them in and interview them under caution about, where, and ask them questions, get the background to this vehicle that they had, why they're selling it, when they acquired it. We can trace with the DVLA when vehicle sales were, the pattern in terms of timelines of when vehicles changed hands. So if they clearly owned it for 10 years, then yeah, you might say absolutely fine. If they acquired it 3 weeks ago, then clearly that's part of the evidence. So these are all things we'd use to build the picture in trying to enforce these cases.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I think that whilst it is an evidential test, I suppose, in that respect, I think it is another tool in our armoury to deal with this nuisance which lines particular areas of the borough, which is one of the reasons I was happy to second it, because East Borough Way in particular, in my ward and Councillor Guttridge's ward, seems to have them every single day, 3, possibly 4 stops along the length of the road. I know there are some at the top where they've even tried to, well, they have actually, tried to demolish the bush which Councillor Clark had put in place to try and deter these things. I know that Councillor Evans has mentioned hotspots in Bedworth. You have them on Gypsy Lane, advertising, and Camp Hill as well. I've seen them, and I know that Councillor Smith has a particular problem by the old Nuneaton down in Bulkington. So this is very few people doing it, but it is actually a nuisance, particularly to the people who live nearest to it. And in fact, one incident we had on East Borough Way, I wasn't heartbroken to see it, but one of them had their car smashed in because they'd left it out there presumably overnight, and someone possibly intoxicated or had a few crashed into it. So normally they would have my sympathy, but in this case, you've left your car there with a purpose to try and sell it as a business. That is the consequence of you leaving that there. So I am more than happy to take this forward as a PSPO. And Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Leader. I fully support this. I was on the working party and we brought this to the working party. We are blighted in our ward with the constant, with the cars, they change them and this, that and the other. We also got them down by Marston Jabbert. I even see Whittleford residents support us, and across the borough we are blighted with it. We even got them just recently at the New Inn in Bulkington, and Glendale have had to cut the grass round the cars, so it does not look tidy for the borough there. So I fully support this. I think Mr. Richardson will be very happy with us getting a PSPO, because I have constantly emailed him the pictures of all the vehicles on East Borough Way and on Marston Lane. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Any other member? No? In which case, sorry, you're just going to cough. I thought you were raising your hand, Councillor Evans. So I'll bring it to the vote. Can all those in favour please show? That is unanimous, so that PSPO will be brought forward subject to the final wording being agreed between Councillor Smith and Mr. Richardson. That brings us on to agenda item number 10, which is recommendations from overview and scrutiny panels. There are none that I have been made aware of. That brings us then on to agenda item 11, which is any other items. And we do actually have another item, which is about appointments to outside bodies. So it is there on the paperwork. I do have to update Cabinet that the William Bentley and Job Potters charities, following investigations by Kelly, no longer exists. For some strange reason, the council was appointing to it and it folded a number of years ago. 2009. So all this time we were wasting ink on paper to try and do that. So the next one is the Hammersley, Smith and Orton charity. I am aware that Mr Hancock's, former Councillor Hancock's, has requested a deferment of this item, but having considered the fact that the board needs to meet, and the fact that representatives need to be appointed, I am not going to defer this item and take this forward. And I believe it is important that the council has representation on this board. So I will be sticking with the original proposal that is printed at 11A, that Councillor Brian Hammersley and Councillor Lee Downs be the new representatives of the Hammersley, Smith and Orton charity for a 4-year term ending October 2025. I won't be moving B, so B will be deleted because it's no longer necessary. They are councillors for Bedworth, and I believe they have an interest in doing so. Councillor Evans, are you seconding? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will happily second that nomination, or nominations rather. It is an important charity and they do need to meet, so I don't believe there should be a delay. It's been interesting, Councillor Hammersley being appointed to the charity. Who knows, there might be some historic link between the Hammersley family and who knows. But I think it's actually important that the council is represented by councillors. And both Councillor Hammersley and Councillor Downs have been elected by the people of Bedworth to serve them, and I think it's only right that councillors in Bedworth represent the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Watkins?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Wilson. Sorry. It's been a long day. Obviously, I've been contacted by Bill Hancock, who wishes to remain on the board. So I would ask. I know that you've already said that you don't want to defer it, but I am asking that you consider keeping Bill Hancock on the board. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. I am aware that former Councillor and indeed former Councillor Haynes were representatives on this charity for a number of years, and I thank them for their service to the charity that they have done. But at the end of the day, I believe the decision has been made by the ballot box, which came out at the elections in May, and Bedworth voted overwhelmingly for their councillors. And I agree with Councillor Evans that that the councillors in Bedworth should represent them, and that the council deserves to have a voice on that. So, as much as I understand that Councillor Hancock has a great affinity with this charity, then I think we should be allowing councillors Hammersley and Downs to take those positions. And I reiterate my thanks to Councillor Hancock for his service, former Councillor Hancock for his service. But there is a new broom in this administration, and I think that also applies to our representatives on outside bodies. Any other speaker? No? In which case I'll bring it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is passed. Kelly, if you can do the necessaries, because I know that they have to meet quite soon, don't they? Okay, thank you. There are no other items, so in that respect, thank you very much for your attendance, ladies and gentlemen. I declare the meeting closed. Can you just confirm that the live stream has ended, please, Kelly?